Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Cryptids and Monsters of the Week. Well, this random page suggestion came up with something involving a purported large sea monster that washed ashore there in Villaricos, Spain. And so because of it, lots of pictures were taken, people were analyzing it, thinking that it's something involving, let's say, an undiscovered species of a sea monster. But in actuality, in looking at all the information, and I agree with this final assessment, it could just be just a real life creature that through the state of decomposition makes it look like something else completely different, something unearthly, when it's in fact truly something currently swimming out there in this world. So let's go ahead and let's talk about this misidentified creature. It's known as the Villaricos horned serpent, which you're looking at the photograph of it now, at least its carcass that was discovered. And I'll go ahead and I'll present all the information and then reason why, again, that final assessment makes sense. So what was this Villaricos horned serpent? Well, it was a creature that was found pretty recently, in this case 2013 to be exact, August 15th, washed ashore there in a decomposing state in Villaricos, Spain. It was washed ashore along one side of one of those beaches. And it was a woman who discovered this quote-unquote sea monster, part of it at least, one portion of the beach, and then its body, the rest of its body, was discovered just a little bit further down. Altogether, it measured about 13 feet in length whenever you would place all of the pieces together. And when the residents there began to take a look even closer, I mean, you can see from the pictures here, it certainly stood out as something uniquely different, something that you've probably never seen before in your life, especially the head portion where it looks like those almost sea serpent like horns, like the classic depictions you would see in those tales from the 16th, 17th century, those kind of drawings. It looks like something straight along those lines. And then of course something about its length, something about it being, in this case, long and just slender, just essentially looks exactly like the prototype of something involving a sea serpent. Lots of people went out there. They started examining it, taking a look at it. I don't know how long exactly it was out there before it was essentially either moved or collected somewhere, but it was enough so that people started calling it, at least its carcass, some names. They called it the horned sea monster. Another name for it was the mutant fish, and then of course there was the moniker itself, a sea monster too. And then when that happened, there were other people that were interviewed for this. They were asked about what it was like to see this thing, what it was as far as in their encounters. They stated that the carcass, besides looking as you see it here, there was a very, very strong odor coming off of it. Now, whether this was from the state of the composition or if it was just the odor of the creature itself, it remains to be seen. But otherwise, yes, that was another interesting thing associated with this quote-unquote mutant fish. But several people really from certain departments, like in this case there was a civil protection coordinator who also came by, a lady by the name of Maria Sanchez. She investigated this animal to try to see what it was like. There were other people there as well that were part of the program. Another one from the Defense of Marine Animals, another person named Francisco Tolenado from the Europe Press. Lots of people that came out, in other words, to check out this thing, because they were actually considering it for a while there as being their version of the Loch Ness. Could they have finally discovered some variation, in this case, of the Loch Ness monster, but here in their portion of Villaricos, Spain? Ultimately, though, after much more examination, it was determined that yes, indeed, this is a real creature, and it's a really unusual creature, but it's actually tied to a real life creature, one that is already known to everyone, to scientists especially, and that's why they were able to discern it as being this. It has a really weird name, like one of those strong Latin names, but in other words, it's like the Latin name for it is Regalicus glesni, but otherwise it's known as a giant oarfish, and you're looking at a picture of it, a live one essentially, and how it looks like swimming across certain parts of the ocean. I haven't seen this oarfish before. I've never heard of it, never seen it before. But once you hear this explanation, it'll make sense. A giant oarfish is the largest type of oarfish in the world. It is a gigantic creature. There are some measurements of it exceeding, in fact, 33 feet in length. If you have that phobia, I forget what the term is called, but there's a phobia out there where people are scared of these giant creatures being in the ocean, especially if, let's say, they're swimming around underneath you and you can't really do much about it. This would be straight out of your nightmares, because this thing, again, reaching 33 feet in length, would definitely fit that category. And that's not even the longest one. There are reports out there that these things can reach actually over 50 feet in length. Can you imagine that? There was one that was encountered that was apparently 58 feet in total length. Just absolutely just nightmarish if you see something like this slithering around. And the reason why I haven't heard of it, and most of you out there probably haven't as well, is because it is extremely rare to see one of these creatures, let alone to be seeing it live, let alone seeing it, let's say, out there placed on some kind of beach, just essentially dying away. These creatures just live out in the deep sea environment. It's very, very difficult to get a hold of one. And then even then, just recently, within the past couple of years, that's when one of them was caught on live footage. Now you'll see some every now and then, like pictures, like I'll show one here that showcase what looks like people catching one, like they actually caught one. Maybe they were fishing, and that's when they happened to capture one. But otherwise, seeing one just as an average tourist, like somebody, let's say, out on a boat or they're swimming around, snorkeling, whatever is the case, that's very, very rare because of this thing being a deep sea creature. But yes, that is essentially, after people were able to look at it, as far as what it could be, a lot of scientists, people that were studying this, researchers, they came up with stating, like, there was a guy named David Shishman who was over at the University of Miami. He's a shark researcher, and he's the one that speculated correctly that it could just be this giant oarfish. So this thing, this so-called Villaricos horned serpent, could it be, in this case, a giant oarfish, or could it be its own cryptid? Ultimately, it's up to you to decide, but evidence seems to point, and rightfully so, that this is just a misidentified creature, and it could just be that giant oarfish altogether. But what do you guys think? For a little while there, at least back in 2013, people thought they had their own Loch Ness monster within their backyard. It'd be great to see if other versions of it start coming out. I think the reason why everyone pointed it to being some kind of horned serpent creature are because of those distinctive horns. Apparently, though, the explanation is when the body was decomposing, those are just natural parts of the body itself. Like the oarfish seems to have in the front of its face these really, really long appendages. Maybe they're part of the fins, who knows, but they otherwise come out from the top of the head, and then just in its natural state of decomposition, they turned into what looks to be, just in our case, horns. But it could, in this case, it's just part of the creature itself, of this fish itself. But that's with another misinterpretation associated with it. But it was exciting for those residents there, just for at least a little bit. But again, please post those comments. What do you guys think? Is this truly a misidentified creature, or is it the real deal? Is it a cryptid, in this case a variation of the Loch Ness monster that was found there in Villaricos, Spain? So alright everybody, thanks again as always, take care.